Privyet from Kazakhstan. I'm Bilkis Bahari, and you are watching Privyet from Kazakhstan Live IG series. And today's speaker, we have a journalist from Malaysia who has over a decade of experience working in the local and international media company. He will share about his experience as a journalist, and he will provide some insights to how Malaysia's journalism industry has changed over the years, and he would also give advice to those who are thinking of becoming a journalist in the future. So Prem and I we have known each other since 2011, 2012. We go way back. So hi Prem, Privyet from Kazakhstan. How are you?
I'm good, Privet, Bilkis. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're
Uh, I mean, I have to say you are doing a great job,
Thank
making Malaysia proud in Kazakhstan.
Thank you. I mean, like I said earlier, I was just telling the viewers that you and I go way back in 2011 or
Mm.
2012, I think. At that time,
Yeah,
we were both working in Kuala Lumpur, both covering the industry. And so we're always at the airport, at airline offices. Prem, you were here in 2017, right, to cover the Astana Expo.
yes, the expo. I was there in 2017.
Right, that was good old time.
That's the last time. Yeah, that's the last time we met.
Yeah, Kazakhstan is waiting for you. After this whole COVID thing will end, you should come here again.
I'm sure I'll come back. I love the country. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's a nice place. And as you know, I was very famous in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, Prem was like a superstar here. Everyone wanted
Yeah,
pictures with him.
yeah. So I'm sure I'll come back.
You've been a journalist for over a decade now. So could you tell
Yeah.
about your journey as a journalist? When and how did it all start?
Um, I started as a journalist in 2008. Uh, I think I wanted to be a journalist when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. I think the idea came to me when, during schooling days, we used to read newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And back at home, my father is an avid NST reader, News Strait Times reader. So he used to, teach us on daily readings. He used to tell us, you must read newspaper on a daily basis. So when I saw the bylines on the articles and I saw columns, I think I got interested in journalism. And I, I mean, the earliest I told my teachers that I would be a journalist was when I was 11 years old, I think. Yeah, when my teachers asked me, what is your ambition? I said, I want to be a journalist. But I didn't have any idea what was that job about.
So you
I thought it's just about,
else.
what is that?
So you never wanted to be anything else but a journalist.
No, I actually wanted to be a pilot first.
Uh-huh.
Then my second option was journalist. But after when I was about 11 and 12, I think journalism was my first choice. And I used to write karangan, they call it essays.
Uh-huh.
We used to write long essays and so on. So even my friends were telling me that time, hey, you can be a good journalist. You are writing like you're writing for the papers and so on. So I think that's how it started. So in 2008, I joined Bernama, the national news agency, and I was based in the economic service news department. Then from there, I went to uh, the Malaysian Reserve. It's a business daily. It was a business daily. Now it's a mainstream newspaper. And now it is my second year as Malaysian correspondent for Nikkei Asian Review. It is a unit under Nikkei, Japanese media giant.
Mm-hmm.
They have an English section called Nikkei Asian Review, and I am the Malaysian correspondent. This is my second year on the job.
Mm-hmm. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. it's, you know, you've gone such a long way, you know, in your journalism journey. And what are some of the events, memorable events that you've covered?
Uh, Memorable events, there are many, but I think um, the memorable one, I would start with the Bersih rally. You
Mhm,
know, I have covered the second Bersih rally. I think this is in 2009. I covered a rally which turned wild and violent. I think that is the most violent street protest that Malaysia have ever seen,
mhm,
where the police arrested people, tear gas were flying here and there. Uh, I have seen, the wild side of Malaysia. Malaysia was known as a peaceful country until that picture when I saw, street protests turning ugly with the police squads coming on, to arrest people, and so on. The other memorable event, of course, covering the historic general election,
uh-huh,
the last general election,
uh-huh,
2018. I think for 3 days, for the 3 days after the election, before and after the election,
mhm,
I think we only slept like 2 or 3 hours for the day because we were kept busy with the developments. We were running from one place to another place, from press conferences to another press conferences, and we were kept busy for the entire 3 days until Dr. Mahathir was sworn in as the Prime Minister.
Were you in KL at that time when you covered the general elections?
Yes, I was based in KL because for the next day, I was doing the cover for the paper.
Uh-huh,
So I was basically monitoring the election results from the office,
uh-huh.
and that even in that very night we were traveling to I think we were traveling to Putrajaya to look at the current situation. Then we were traveling to the former administration office, which is in PWTC,
Mhm.
Putra World Trade Center, to look at the situations. And the next day followed with Dr. Mahadi having back-to-back press conferences in Sheraton, Patel, PJ. So we were kept busy for the 3 days.
You mentioned Dr. Mahathir, Tun Mahathir.
Hmm.
You know, I think people all over the world knows who he is,
Of
and
course.
you've interviewed him one on one for like so many times. And
Hmm.
you know, how was he like in person?
What can I say about Dr. Mahathir? I have had the opportunity to sit with him for 7 times
Uh,
for one-to-one interviews. Uh, Twice when he was the Prime Minister, and five when he was the former Prime Minister. Uh, I always say, I always tell my friends and my family, Dr. Mahathir is the smartest man that I've seen on earth. He is very smart. He is witty. The last I met him was 2 months ago, and he was as witty as he always is. He was healthy at 95, not, I think there are only handful of people as active as he is.
uh-huh.
Uh, during my interviews with him, I think I have, of course, the team, his media team would ask for a list of questions prior to the interview,
Mm-hmm.
just to vet through whether the questions are sensitive, or whether it's not proper to ask him or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, not most of the time, all of the time that I have met him, my questions that I pose to him during the interviews will be 70 to 80% different from the list of the questions that I've given.
Uh-huh.
And no, not a single time that Dr. Mahathir have said, sorry, I have no comments, or
But
he would have said,
there,
oh, I was not briefed about this question. There's no single time that he has said that. He has answer for every single question that I've asked. Not in one interview, the 7 times that I've interviewed him,
mm-hmm.
not a single time I came back with note stories. To recap, I interviewed him for his 100th day as the Prime Minister.
Uh-huh.
I interviewed him in the Prime Minister's office. And when I came out, we were given an hour of his time. When we came out, I literally had 17 angles, 17 angles to write.
Wow.
I don't think there is any other interviews that I can have so many angles to write
Uh-huh.
because he literally has answers. I think because of his knowledge, he reads a lot. He keeps his mind active. So I think he has answered to every question, every issues that you have, be it international issues, domestic issues, economic issues, corporate issues. He has answered for everything.
He's very sharp. I mean, at 95 years old, he's still
Yes.
we've seen his on his Instagram or Facebook, he's on
Yes.
his bicycle cycling around Putrajaya.
Yes. Yes.
He had his anniversary with his lovely wife. I think Tun Hasma, she's like the sweetheart of Malaysia.
Yeah, Bilkis, to tell you the truth, I have interviewed Dr. Siti Hasma when she was the Prime Minister's wife about exactly 1 year ago.
Uh-huh.
I interviewed her, and uh, only after the interview I realized that Dr. Mahathir is the man that he is, only because there is a powerhouse called Dr. Siti Hasma behind it.
Uh-huh.
She is very talented, she's very smart, uh, very kind, very humble, very soft-spoken. I actually, during the interview, she came, I think she was late by 20 minutes or 15 minutes
Okay.
because she had to send off uh, Dr. Mahadev to some place. I don't know where she sent him off, but she came to the interview a bit later and she apologized to us 3 times during the interview.
Wow. Okay.
She didn't have to. She didn't have to. It was supposed to be an hour of interview, but it turned out to be 3 hour long conversation.
Wow.
We were having so much of topics to talk about.
Uh-huh.
Uh, she was very friendly. Then I realized that the saying goes right, no? Every successful man, there is a woman behind.
Uh-huh.
And if everyone has a wife like Dr. Siti Hasma, I think every man can progress very fast.
Definitely be successful and live a very long, healthy life.
Yeah, I pray for the same.
So, you've gone through so many things as a journalist, and you've covered different kinds of events, and you've also witnessed the change that happened in the local media scene in Malaysia. So just to get your opinion, how exactly has the media landscape changed when you first started as a journalist until today, compared to today?
Uh,
the media scene was uh, very different because it was relying more on events, and you had to send your reporters to cover the events and to ask questions to the panelists and get a story out from there. But now it is not the same. I think social media has changed our lives.
Uh-huh.
Almost every press conferences are on Facebook. It is streamed live. You can ask your questions on Facebook. Then I think it has changed the way we work. It has changed the way we write stories because everybody on social media now are now able to see the press conferences live. They don't need a reporter to report it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all social media, all netizens are now journalists.
Uh-huh.
So I think the job of journalists has become more challenging nowadays because you have to be on top of all these netizens. You have to carve out a story which maybe the netizens would have missed out, or maybe you must add some analysis into it. You must be a bit analytical because by the time you write an event story, it will be very old because every single netizen would have talked about it, would have written about it. on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. So you have to be creative enough to carve a story out of an event. So you must be able to talk to, analysts, economists, or, political analysts, political observers, or to evaluate your stories. I think that is what the media companies are also looking forward in a reporter nowadays. They no longer want you to write. Your ability to write is now secondary. Your ability to add value to a story, yes, that counts.
You see journalists asking questions live on Facebook during a press conference. You can see the netizens also, they're kind of like teaching the journalists, why don't you ask this question? Why do you ask that question? And I think you're right. Nowadays, journalists have to value add to the story. And I think they also have to be able to multitask, right?
Mhm. Yeah, multitasking, yes, and they have to be quick, you know, because everybody wants to flash the news first. Everybody wants to compete because those days the wires used to be fast. The newspapers will add value, with pictures. That was the the structure of journalism. But now it's different because everybody wants to tweet about it first. Uh, if you look at reporters, their account is linked, or I mean, their account is subscribed by the media agencies. So when they tweet something, the media company immediately retweets it, and it becomes the official tweet of the media company. So that's how it's working now. I think I think that's why journalists are rushing to flash. But there is also a disadvantage in that because everybody wants to be Insta famous, everybody wants to be Twitter famous by flashing first, by getting a lot of retweets. But accuracy is an issue. Sometimes when you are very quick,
Exactly.
you will miss accuracy, and when you miss accuracy, you will miss your loyal readers. And that is the dilemma that the current journalism industry is facing.
I think one of my previous boss, NST boss, Mustafa Kamil, I remember he said that it's okay if you are slow, but as long as your information is accurate.
Correct. Because I mean, even my previous bosses used to tell me, if you're fast and you're accurate, it's okay. But the moment you make one mistake,
Yeah.
your credibility goes down. And if it involves big news, big issues, which involves maybe the prime minister or a minister, it will bring your credibility down, and everybody will have issues of trusting you the next time you do something. You know, for instance, just 2, 3 days ago, uh, a major political party in the country, AMNO, announced that they are pulling out of a coalition which is currently governing the country.
The Perikatan.
But they said Parikatan National, correct. And they said they are still supporting the current Prime Minister, Muhyiddin Yassin. And but there was instances where media reporters they immediately tweeted that Muhyiddin's government has fallen or are on a brink of dissolution because the biggest party has pulled out. But the essence of the story was there was no formal coalition for AMNO to pull out at the first place
Okay.
because Parikatan National is not a formal coalition. It was like people sharing the coalition, but there was nothing formal yet. Second, the AMNO president has already clarified that in the same press conference he said we are still supporting the current prime minister. So issue of loyalty doesn't arise. But when you tweet something like that and it goes viral, uh, unfortunately, then the reporter had to apologize. This is unwarranted because you don't have to do that. If you would have heard the press conference carefully for the second time, this mistake could have been avoided.
I think because everybody wanted to be the first one to share the information, so that's why
Correct.
whenever they hear without analyzing it without thinking. They just quickly type and tweet it out.
Correct. That's what happening.
And do you think, if you see the media in UK and US, you have the CNN, BBC, and all that, they have, their journalists are actually quite famous. Like you said,
Mm.
social media, the social media is linked to the company's social media
Yes.
account. Do you think that is happening in Malaysia as well? So each journalist have to be, famous, but they have to be known. People have to follow them so that they follow the media company.
See, I believe one thing. You don't have to be Twitter famous to be a good reporter. Some reporters have the idea that they have to be famous in Twitter when they have about hundreds of or thousands of retweets. They are the pinnacle of journalism. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You Twitter is everybody's platform. If today you are famous, tomorrow nobody might retweet what you say. You are not Dr. Mahathir or you are not Donald Trump. For everybody to retweet or whatever you are saying. So the most important part is accuracy. And but I'm not encouraging people to be slow, but you have to be steady. You just don't just type. If you see press conferences now, some reporters are covering the event and at the same time they are tweeting about whatever happening there. When you do that, you don't have your state of mind in the event, and that will lead to inaccuracies. And I think on Twitter, they are now that there is a trend now. I think Awani has started it where the reporters are enabled to use online handles, the company's handle, to tweet. I think it's a good thing because people want fast verified news. I think that's good, but they also have to teach their reporters, all companies, they must teach their reporters to be responsible when they are doing that. So that is the fine thin line that we are talking about.
How do you see the difference between journalists during our time and our seniors, and also the junior journalists now working? Are there any difference in, like, let's say, like the way they see things, the way they see the story angle and all that?
See, I always tell myself one thing. I think I came into the industry. I think myself, you, Bilkis, and some of my friends in journalism, we entered the industry during the golden era coming to an end period. The end of the golden era where our seniors were there to guide us. Our seniors were there to tell us stories. Our seniors were there to guide us through, even when somebody was harassing you over the phone for some articles that you have written, our seniors can handle that for us. Or our seniors will tell you, this is how you must do things. But after our time, I think the new reporters who have came in, I have dealt with many, many young reporters in the companies that I've worked with. I think they are all good. They want to learn. But they are not showing initiatives when somebody wants to teach them.
Okay.
That's an issue. Second, you come into the industry thinking that you know everything. Because people think when you are up to date on Twitter, you are up to date on Facebook, that means you know the world. Journalism doesn't work that way. I think journalism is all about your context, your state of mind to analyze certain situations, certain events, and the way you interpret it for a layman, to understand. That is what matters. It doesn't matter whether you are very famous or it doesn't matter if you have 5 PhDs. No, it doesn't matter. So that is the problem that I see with the young reporters when you want to teach them. They are not very comfortable to learn. But some of them are talented, but still this is a common problem that I see among most of them. where they don't want to be taught, they don't want to be criticized. I don't remember my initial days in Bernama where I did not get scolding for even one day. Almost every day I got bashed. Almost every day I got scolded. Thinking about it now, I think that is what shaped me. If nobody would have scolded me, nobody would have criticized my writing, I would have thought I'm the greatest writer in the world, and I would have continued that way.
It's the same as me. My previous editor, one of
Yeah.
my previous editors before, he always said, Bilkis, you write like a robot. Put some soul in your article.
Mm.
So, and then
Yeah.
I think during our time, we had to, when we joined the industry, we had to actually sit next to the editor, while he's editing the piece.
Yes.
Before, let's say if we don't know something, so we would actually sit and do our homework. And now I think it's like you said, because even in Kazakhstan, it's the similar issue because some people, some young journalists, they think that because they're very famous on Instagram, they have, let's say, like 10K or 20K followers. So they feel that, I'm already Christian, I'm a poor. You get what I mean? But,
Yeah.
thinking back, when we started, it was very different. And another thing is that we were so respectful of our seniors. We
Yes.
even had to buy tea if we get the front page.
I mean, in my last occupation in the Malaysian Reserve, I had the opportunity to edit stories. My last position there was assistant news editor.
Uh-huh.
So I get to talk to these young reporters. I give them ideas. Sometimes I guide them. Sometimes I will ask them to come. Some of them are very, I don't want to use the word arrogant, but some of them are very reluctant when you ask them to, take a seat next to you. They think it's an humiliation for an editor to guide them line by line because according to them, they know how to write. I always tell them, I don't question your writing. Of course, I don't question your writing, but you must write for a man to understand on his first reading. You see, there was during my Bernama days, there was a sub-editor. His name was he's now the late Mr. Thomas. He told me once, I remember that until now. He said, when a man reads your story for the second time because he didn't understand the first time, you failed as a reporter. That means just resign, go back home. That was his advice. So I think that I carry that advice until now. And when I tell this to the new reporters, they, it's not that they don't want to listen, but they are not bothered because for them, whatever they are doing is already the best. They don't want to improve on it. So I thought to myself, okay, human capital building is only for a certain level. If you don't want to learn, I can't insist. So that's how there are some juniors, there are some new writers who really learned, who really listened and progressed in their life, and they are they are in many places now doing so well, and that's how industry is.
But do you also think that there's a difference in terms of own initiative? Because during our time, we go out, we get to know people. Like you mentioned earlier, contacts are very important for a journalist. And sometimes we don't have stories, but we still go around, get to know people, try to get stories, and we initiate our own story. And we are so proud of our own stories, But do you see the same thing in the young journalists today?
See, I don't think they are taking ownership of their stories. For them, they are coming to work. They expect journalism to be an office job.
Okay.
Where they expect to come in at 9, go back at 5, go back at 6. When you tell them, hey, there is an event tonight, you might have to cover it. They don't like it because they think I came for an office job. I came for a clerk job where I do my job from 9 to 6. Uh, so this kind of small things leads to another issue where you don't take ownership of your work. You
Mm-hmm.
don't feel proud of your writing. And for you, for some of them, it's like I get an assignment, I go to the event, report whatever said, and that's it, done.
Okay.
If you take ownership of your stories, maybe you would add value first, or second, you would, do some follow-ups, or third, you might be able to, build contacts with the same person that you have spoken to for future engagements. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't see many reporters doing that. I don't see.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, the most important thing for a journalist is context because you can be Insta famous, Twitter famous, you can have 1 million, 10, 100 million followers, but if you don't have strong context, it means nothing.
Yeah, journalism is all about context, breaking news. If you don't have the ability to gauge something before it happens, maybe for a new reporter, yes, it will take time to build context. But after 5, 6 years, if you're still telling you don't have the context in the industry, then I think you have to relook at your future.
Yeah.
Maybe you would not be a journalist for a very long time.
What do you think, speaking about the work of journalists and all that, what do you think is the main purpose of a journalist?
What is the word?
The main purpose of a journalist, given that now with social media, everybody is a journalist.
The main purpose is, you see, everybody is a journalist, yes, but still people are buying newspapers, people are reading online portals because they want some sort of authentication that this news is verified, this event happened, and so said this particular issue, particular thing. So that sense of, verification is still needed. And that is why people are still following these, portals. People are still talking about newspaper articles because of this process. Because if you were to believe whatever is talked about in social media, I think Jackie Chan would have been dead 20, 30, 40 times by now. Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson would have been dead like 70 times.
Uh-huh.
They have been killed so many times on social media. And this is the issue. So they verify with press, but first-hand information is still taken from social media.
Uh-huh.
But media companies are still being used to verify these particular issues.
So, we were talking about the young journalists earlier. A lot of people seem to think that journalists actually have glamorous life. So because you see, they think that it's easy to be a journalist because you get to travel all the time for work, you get to meet high-ranking people, you get to eat at five-star hotels all the time. So when you, but the reality is when you see a journalist's social media, it's just a glimpse of the reality, of the actual life. So, you know, do you think that journalists really do have a glamorous life?
I think glamour is only what I say 0.5, 0.1% of the job. Where there are moments that you are appreciated. I always call journalism as a double-edged sword because you are on both extremes. Sometimes you are appreciated at the peak. Sometimes you are just unwanted. In some events, you are unwanted. In some events, you are appreciated. Uh, I have been a business journalist all the while. So business journalism is somehow the premium business class of journalism. The economy class is, of course, crime, court, general desk, where they have to cover almost every issues from, clock drain to, lift not working in, elevators not working in public properties, to whatever events, court, police cases, crime. So, but even as a business journalist, I have faced a lot of, uh, I mean, a lot of instances where you are unwanted. Because I have covered, this was about few years back, I have waited in a hotel lobby because there was a company's annual general meeting going on and it was a huge troubled company. They did not invite the press. We went for the annual general meeting. I was literally sitting on the floor of the hotel lobby for 13 hours. The annual general meeting was 13 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So, and there was no food. The food was only for the shareholders. When the press went to the food area, they literally chased us away. And the hotel is a bit, far from the restaurants. So you are afraid to go out because you are afraid the AGM, the meeting can end at any time. The spokesperson might be coming out, so you're very afraid of leaving the place. But at the same time, you're very hungry because 13 hours.
Exactly.
And you are, and they did not give us chairs. We were sitting on the floor. So I have had those instances as well. There are events that when we go there and we tell we are from the press, they immediately shut the doors and they say, sorry, we did not invite you. There have been instances. It's not glamorous. But the glamour part, if you ask me, in my opinion, is that journalism is a job which enables you, which permits you to ask questions to people that you have never imagined asking questions. When I was schooling, when we were schooling, Bilkis, the Prime Minister was Dr. Mahathir. Have we ever imagined of us asking questions to Dr. Mahathir?
No.
Have we ever imagined meeting him in person, talking to him, sitting across him, asking him tons of questions, shooting him with questions? Have we ever imagined? No. But this job enables us to do that. That's the glamour part for me. That's the proud moment that you say. Because the job gives you the opportunity to question people. And I think the fantastic thing about journalism is you don't deal with the same issue every day. You don't report to the same people every day. You don't meet the same people every day. And you don't go to the same place every day. It is every day, it's a new day. It is literally a new issue, a new assignment, a new spokesperson. So it's kind of interesting. You don't get bored with the job. That is why when I look at my seniors, they have been journalists for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, because they never got bored with the job. Because every day is a new day, no?
Even though we get to meet all these people, let's say like even when you meeting Tun Mahathir, right? I'm sure before you meet him, you would have to prepare. You have to read. You have
Of course.
know your questions and all that, because people say, oh wow, you're so lucky you meet Tun Mahathir or you meet this person, that person, but it's not like you just go meet and you talk like a friend. You're actually doing your job, and you also have the image because you represent your media company, right?
Yes, correct. When you're talking to people like Dr. Mahathir, I've interviewed so many people who are very intelligent, and you can't be sitting in front of them and asking stupid questions because they literally have no time to entertain your stupid questions or your PR questions. Sometimes, when we go for interviews, we will ask them friendly questions. The first 3 questions might be friendly. Sometimes the spokesperson that I've interviewed, they do not have time for that. They will tell me, why are you here? Directly ask the questions that you want to. So we have to do very, very thorough background, study. We have to prepare specific questions because some people don't like when you repeat. You ask them to clarify on things that they have said before. Some people don't like it. So you have to paraphrase your question. You have to rethink about an angle. That bit takes a bit of time. But other than that, I think even during an interview, it's not a glamour thing. You are doing your job, like what you said. The only glamour part is at end of the interview, if somebody says, can I take a picture with you?
Yeah.
That one picture is the glamour moment. Other than that, I don't think it's glamour. It's just doing the job.
I think, and what most people don't know is that even when you interview a person, right, or you ask the person a question during the press conference, sometimes the person can be so emotional and, suddenly he or she will call you names in public. And I mean, of
Mm.
it is our job to ask the question, but as a human, sometimes it hurts,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I've been called stupid before. I've been called, I've been called what? I've been called as a junior writer. Even now, by some people, I've been called, oh, junior writer. And they say, oh, why are you asking stupid question? But that question might be relevant. It depends on how you define stupidity.
Uh-huh.
If the questions that you don't want to listen is stupid to you, then I'm sorry, I have to be stupid. But it, it is not stupid questions, but maybe the questions is not relevant to them, but it is relevant to our readers. So it is important to get their comments. But yeah, correct. But there are people who get very emotional when you interview them. There have been instances where people have chased me out of interviews. People have said, okay, that's the last question. Thank you very much. They just got up and walked off. There have been instances, yeah.
And there are also some people, some very famous people that we all know in Malaysia. They're leaders of, very big companies. When they go to events, they come out, they don't want to answer questions. But instead of, I think, being respectful to the journalists, saying that, okay, guys, you know what? No questions today, sorry, and then just walk off, the person just, straight away come out of the room, and usually it's Invest KL. I remember at Shangri-La. So the person would just
Invest Malaysia.
Invest Malaysia, yeah. So the person would
Mm.
come out of the room and just started walking, and his bodyguards will try to push all the journalists away, and the journalists will try to run after that individual. So I think those are the things that people don't know about actually
Yeah.
a journalist. And
I have fought with a huge company's managing director.
uh-huh,
He's uh, he's a Tan Sri. I should not mention his name.
uh-huh,
I have fought with him because he pushed the mics because he didn't want to answer the questions.
uh-huh,
So I told him, I said, if you do not want to answer the question, you can just say so and leave. You
uh-huh,
don't have to push the mics because we were at his place.
uh-huh.
He's the owner of a huge conglomerate. So he did that. I said, it doesn't allow you to push mics or, humiliate the reporters. No, if you don't want to answer, because some people will tell me, look, you should not be asking those questions. You should not be, touching sensitive topics. I will tell them, look, I'm doing my job. Like you, I have a job to do. My job is to ask questions. If you do not want to answer, you can say so. Nobody is going to kill you for saying no.
Exactly.
So, so that's how I tell people. But like what you said, some people are very arrogant. Some people, they only want to speak to media when they want to.
Exactly.
They don't want to answer crises. But you can't say they are wrong because they might be right on their part. But what I'm telling is don't humiliate the press. You don't want to talk to us? Fine. Nobody is going to summon you. Fine. But don't humiliate. Don't treat us like unwanted people. Because I had an experience, Bilkis.
Uh-huh.
I was covering a talk. Um, so this is a very highly placed. Uh, he was a former highly placed government official, and he was talking on the stage. And he saw me sitting. This was in University, the country's oldest university, and this is in 1,000 people the city. He saw me. I was sitting in the row of the media people. He saw me and he immediately told the crowd. He said, "People, look at this group of people sitting on your right. If they come and talk to you, please do not entertain them. They are really bad people." This is how they define press. And
Uh-huh.
he is no longer in service. But after the event, I confronted him. That is not a sweet thing to say. I mean, of course, he said it was a joke. I said, no, it was not a joke. How if I make fun of you in front of 1,000 people? No, it's not nice.
Exactly.
If you are unable to answer my question, just say you are unable to answer, or you just say you don't wish to comment. But that's not the way to treat press.
I think to be a journalist also, instead of, being accurate, being multi-skilled, having context, you have to be very thick-skinned and you cannot be sensitive.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes, I won't say I'm not emotional. Sometimes I get very emotional, especially when people ridicule our job, or they treat us like they treat us very badly. I get very emotional. I have I have raised my concern with a lot of people in a lot of events, but yeah, to a certain extent, you have to be thick-skinned because. Uh, Sometimes the first time somebody meets you, they might not entertain you, they might just ignore you, you might be in middle of conversation, they will just ignore you. But maybe the second or third time when you approach them, they might be comfortable speaking to you. So if you react emotionally the first time, most probably you will lose the opportunity of talking to them in the future.
Exactly. That's why, as a journalist, I think you can't be very, very sensitive, even though sometimes it hurts, but
Yeah,
you have to treat it professionally and not take it
correct.
to heart. And sometimes, also what people don't know is that, let's say a certain media company writes something, let's say bad about company A, and then when it's not you who covered the event, or it's not your article, it's not even your reporting, but then let's say the next day there's an event, you go there, and then suddenly, oh, let's say like Prem from Bernama or Bilkis from NST. Oh, I don't like NST. And then
I have faced that.
they
Yeah,
they would just ask you to go out. They don't want to talk to you, and you're like, what is the problem?
yeah. I have experienced that as well.
So I think those are the things that many people don't realize. Because from even my own experience, even when I talk to our other journalist colleagues, when they say that people complain about their work, people say, oh, this journalist, like, is she or he stupid? Why do you write things like this? But it's not. It's not an easy job. It's not just, writing. First of all, it's not easy.
I mean that's what I tell to the aspiring young people who wants to become journalists. I always tell them, don't come to journalism just because you hate maths. It doesn't work that way. Just don't come to journalism because you had no other choice. You had to find a job, and you thought everybody can be a reporter, so you joined journalism. There are people who have told me that. There are people who have, told me that they came to journalism because they had no other profession to go. And they are just, see, when you do that, you do not have passion.
Exactly.
When you do not have passion, you will not succeed. So that is the risk that you're going to take. You might have a very short-lived experience in journalism, and you might, your heart is out there, and you always want to go out, of the profession. So that is the risk that you're going to take. But if you have passion, you liked writing, or you liked uh, informing people about a particular event, uh, then you can explore journalism. But if not, don't come to journalism just because you didn't excel in mathematics, you didn't like numbers. To confess, I never liked numbers when I was in school.
Mhm.
And but I wanted to be a journalist because I was thinking about political stories, politics, general, and so on. But when I came into practical, I was doing my practical in Bernama, my editor-in-chief, Dato Yong Soo Hyong, who I owe a lot of success to, he told me, I'm putting you in the economic desk. I said, no, I do not know economics. He said, you will learn.
Uh-huh.
And I remember my first few months, I was clueless. I was I have cried in front of the computer knowing nothing of what to write. You know, I have gone for press conferences, coming back. I do not know what to do. But, you know, that's the learning process. I had my fantastic seniors to coach. I had my editors to help me. So that's the process. So, but you must, you must come into journalism to and expect this process. You cannot come into journalism and immediately after 3 years of writing, you expect to be promoted. You expect to be an editor.
Exactly.
There have been cases like that. And, you know, it's all false hope because the reality is not such.
And also, you know, to be an editor, you have to take responsibility. Because whatever your journalists do, it is your responsibility. You cannot just say, oh, it's not me, it's my journalist.
Correct. I think editors should be able to defend their reporters because in Malaysian Reserve, my former boss, Mr. Azlan Jafar, one thing I learned from him is that anything that the companies, the companies involved calls to office and say, oh, your reporter was inaccurate, the story is inaccurate. First thing first, he will defend the reporter.
Uh-huh.
He will never say, oh, my reporter is at fault, we will rectify the mistakes. No.
Uh-huh.
He will say, my reporter might not, it's not the intention of the reporter to write it wrongly. You send me an email of whatever you think it's wrong. I will clarify it with my reporter.
Uh-huh.
You know that I think when I was when I was an editor, that's the culture that I brought. That you know at all costs you must defend your reporters. If even if you know that your reporters are wrong, you rectify it with the company and you tell the company, okay, we will issue a correction or something like that. But you should not put down your reporter to that particular person. You know, it's not nice to do that,
Because
and it will
your
it will dampen your morale as well.
because reporters are like your children, you know. You don't throw your kids under the bus, even though you know sometimes they are wrong, but you don't do that, at least in front of everybody else.
I mean, as far as I know, I've never done that. I have always defended my juniors. Even when I was a senior writer, I I have defended my reporters. I have never, I have fought with PR, public relation officers because of this. Because I know the hardship that we go through to get a story out. And it is very easy for you to call back and say, oh, the story was wrong, the angle was wrong, this was wrong, that was wrong. And one thing I learned from Mr. Azlan was that he always tells the PR company not to teach us how to do news.
Exactly.
You know, your job is to supply the materials. Let us decide on the angle. Let us decide on the story narration. You should not be telling us what to do. That's not your job. That's something that I learned from him.
That was a very interesting conversation, Prem. Perhaps we can do this again some other time, because I think
Sure.
it's very it's an eye-opening for people to know the life of a journalist. And I wish you good luck. And thank you so much for joining Privyet from Kazakhstan IG Live.
Thank you, Bilkis, and thank you for the opportunity. And like I said, you are doing a great job in Kazakhstan.
Thank you.
I think you will soon become the image of Kazakhstan in Malaysia. Yeah. Keep up the good job and
Thank you so much.
all the best.